Content warning. The content of this podcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered medical or psychological advice. The views expressed are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of any professional organizations. If you or someone you know is experiencing mental health issues or a crisis, please seek help from a qualified mental health professional or contact a crisis support service by dialing 988. Always consult with the licensed therapist or counselor for personalized support and guidance. Welcome to Queer in Here, Let's Talk Mental Health, and I'm Alicia Nolan. My pronouns are she, her, 3-time Amazon bestselling author and owner of Choose to Live. This podcast is dedicated to LGBTQ+ mental wellness. A diverse selection of mental health professionals and passionate storytellers will come together to create a safe and supportive space for everyone. Each episode features insightful conversations that explore the unique challenges faced by the LGBTQ+ community, weaving in personal narratives that resonate deeply with experiences of identity, acceptance, and resilience. This podcast will not only provide valuable tools for coping and healing, but it will also foster a sense of belonging, reminding followers that they are not alone in their journeys, and intends to inspire hope, spark dialogue, and promote mental wellness for everyone. Hi, Marcie, and welcome to Queer in Here, Let's Talk Mental Health. Can you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. My name is Marcie Macari. I am an author, public speaker, and professional dominatrix.
Fantastic. Welcome.
Thank you.
This is going to be a fun conversation today. I can already feel it, and I'm very, very excited.
Me too.
Let's just start with your story.
Sure.
And I'm excited to hear about your story because I haven't had anybody come on yet and talk about religious trauma in depth.
Yes.
So I guess I gave a little bit of a clue as to what's about to take place. A little hint, just throw it out there.
That's okay. I don't think people they'll be surprised at what's coming. So yeah.
So please share.
Story. Great. So I knew that I was gay when I was about probably 14, but I was in a fundamentalist Christian religion, and there was just no wiggle room for people who were homosexuals because all of them were going to hell, and I didn't want to go to hell. So I just got married very young to kind of do the right thing and have some babies and then I joined a missionary. Well, I joined the missionary organization first, then I married my first husband. And I essentially left him for a woman in the ministry. And the ministry stranded me with my 14-month-old baby in Africa. They refused to fly me home or renew my work visa. So I was stuck in Africa with a 14-month-old baby and no way to work legally. So that began my entrepreneur spirit, because I would hand paint greeting cards and wrap my baby on my back with a towel, like all of the Black African ladies had taught me how to do. And I'd park my little butt next to all of those amazing carvers and woodworkers on the blankets at the farmer's market. And I would sell my cards. And that's how I fed my daughter and I for a while, or I would trade it for food, I'd like a mango, here's a card, and they would trade it. And then I got blessed with an opportunity to go back home. When I arrived, I had no family. They basically abandoned me. So it was a very difficult place to be. And I was starting to kind of question myself. I wasn't questioning what I believed. I was questioning me. Maybe because I had a traumatic childhood, maybe they were right. Maybe this was Satan trying to lure me away from God. Right. And so I got married again to a man. And same thing, same problem. I actually have been married 4 times, 1 to a woman and 3 times to a man. And I say that out loud because for a lot of people, that's a point of shame, and they don't want everybody to know that they've been married multiple times. But this is what I say. For those of us who come into the world and experience intense trauma from a childhood that is kind of chaotic or havoc wreaking, we are seeking answers in our relationships and complicate that with a sexuality that is not the traditional default. And you can be looking for those answers in your relationships and not realize it. When you find that there's no answers in that relationship, you leave the relationship and you go looking elsewhere, right? So for me, I kind of discovered through the process that not only was I gay, but I also really didn't believe what I thought I believed growing up. I was very, like, I was the girl who was putting the Christian tracks in all of the bathrooms. I was the one with the Christian t-shirts, and I was like only going to Christian music concerts. And I was like, you know, I was the one picked on in high school for being a virgin till I was married. And I was that girl. Mm-hmm. And now I am a professional dominatrix, and I no longer believe what the Christian faith teaches us traditionally. I do believe in something greater than us, but I don't think that it is specifically some male god up in the sky, right? I think we are all connected by something wonderful and bigger than us, but I don't think it makes no sense to me that one group of humans would be able to define that. So I think we all have a part of the answer. So yeah, it was interesting. So then my family had basically abandoned me. And one of the couples that I had stayed with when I was in the ministry was like a theater ministry. So we would do plays on themes in different places. We'd do prisons and nursing homes and churches and schools. And one of the pastors who put us up, her name was Diane. Diane was a feminist, and she was married to a man who was the keeper of the home. And she didn't take his last name. And I was all very interested in how somebody could be a Christian and be so like absolutely female centered. And we talked a lot. She became a very special figure in my life. And when I came back from Africa, my family refused to come and get me, and I had no way to get from New York City to where I lived. So Diane and Jerry came and got me, and I stayed with them for a couple of years, and I ended up pregnant, and they were like, "You can stay with us as long as you need." They had the baby, and my second husband, I had to think about that. My second husband was in the military. And so he was actually away a lot. We didn't really know each other. And he had a drug problem, and I didn't know it, and kind of that kind of thing. But anyway, I had the baby, and my dad said he was going to work, and I was giving the baby a bath in the kitchen sink. And he turned to me and I said to him, you know, "Bye, Dad. Have a great day." I just had started calling them Mom and Dad. Mm-hmm. And he turned to me and he said, "Your mom and I would like to make that official." So at the age of 24, I became adopted, and I had a soft place to land. They were supportive of LGBTQ people. Their only rule was no more than one sex partner in a house at a time. And I thought that was a very reasonable ask.
That's reasonable. Yep.
Yeah. For a pastor's house. Right.
Yeah.
And so I was like, that's fine. So I became part of their family, and they were my rock. My father has passed away, but my mom is still with us. And, you know, her openness and the way that she moves through the world with such grace has really sort of given me different perceptions. She kind of giggles at my very fundamentalist, super literal translation of the Bible. You know, she's like, "Lord," like she's just like, why, how can people believe this to be true? You know? Right. But she helps me to kind of reframe things when I have questions about things I learned when I was younger. But she's very, very comfortable with all religions, and that really helped me to relieve some of that. But it was a process to get to the point where I could even talk about God or something greater than us because of my religious trauma. Like the amount. So not only did they strand me, but I became a persona non grata, which means an ungrateful person, because I had committed to a lifetime with this ministry. And I left for the reasons I explained. And they considered me a PNG, persona non grata. And that means that they're not allowed to talk to me. They're not allowed to come and visit. So it took me a few years to heal from that. I was very angry and very hurt. And then I did a lot of work. I had to do a lot of therapy to really embrace who I was and my interest in women, and to understand the normality of it. It took a long time to be able to sit in a lesbian conversation or community and feel like there was, I don't know, like I belonged there, because I had children and I had, you know, a history of marriages with men. And I didn't feel like I present really femme. You know, it's people often didn't take me seriously, or they didn't think that I could be really gay. I was probably just pretending, or, not really gay, but I'm really gay. So I'm
You're
out.
like, no,
I'm out.
I'm really, really gay.
I'm like, yeah, exactly. Where's the litmus test for that? But I am yeah, I'm out. I've been out now. I went back in the closet when I first came back, and I came back out again. So I've been out now for 8 years, and I'm really happy to be out.
Good. Yes. Oh my gosh. How long were you in Africa for?
5 years.
You were stranded there for 5 years?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Almost 5 years, yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting that answer, I'm not going to lie. That's a lot longer than I was anticipating you would say.
Yeah.
How did you build a community?
So I wasn't stranded that long. I was in Africa for that long, but I was in the ministry working for the first 3 years of that. Sorry.
Okay. Nope, yeah, you're okay. Stranded for 2, left there for 2.
Yes.
An additional 2, which is still, I was honestly thinking months. I was clearly wrong. But how did you go about just building community? What was it like? I mean, did people take you in? It sounded like people took you in.
Yeah. So what happened was I left the ministry, and they basically literally said, here's your baby. You can take whatever you can carry in your backpack, and the rest of it stays with your husband. So they kicked me out at night. And this was right after the change of government from a white government to a black government. So white people, the people who had come into power were very angry after years of oppression. And so they were taking it out on white people. And they kicked me out in a dangerous area with a baby on my back. And that was for me, the juxtaposition of God loves everybody. We must take care of people if we want to be Christian was very juxtaposed with what was really happening.
I was going to say, it doesn't sound very Christian-like.
And it wasn't. It wasn't even good humans.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And essentially what it was a human error. But yeah.
You said you knew you were gay at about 14. When was your first marriage? When did you get married?
19.
How did you navigate those feelings as a teenager? A lot of people, we grow up in an area where it's accepted and welcoming. So we find out that we're gay when we're 14 and we can express that. How did you navigate that? Did you have anybody that you could talk to?
No, absolutely not. And the situation I was in advocated physical abuse to children. And so I didn't feel safe doing that because I knew that I would be in risk and danger. Yeah.
This might be a stupid question. Advocated physical abuse, do you mean spanked, beaten, just all of the above?
All of the above.
Yeah.
Yeah. As long as they were doing it in a teaching way, because we had done something that we needed to learn, then it was, okay. It was condoned.
So they would beat the gay out of you. That was
my fear.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Goodness.
Yeah. Conversations are kind of windy, and you asked me a question and I got off track in my answer.
No, you're okay.
Go back to that. So we were talking about how did I find community in Africa.
Yeah.
So after they kicked me out, I reached out to the gay church. Now, in South Africa at the time, anything gay was underground. So all of the clubs were you had to know the person who had the code to the garage door of the underground club. That's the only place I could meet other lesbians, right? So it was very quiet and private, but they had a gay church that was also very secretive. And I reached out to them and explained the situation, and they called me back within a day. I ended up where did I stay the first night? I think I stayed with the woman that I left with. I think it was her aunt's friend was in the town, and I stayed with her for one night. But this church called me, and they were like, we have another woman who has an extra room in her flat, in her apartment. And, she would like to talk to you about, putting you up. So her name was Natalie. And Natalie was wonderful. She was an older lesbian, and she was celibate because the person that she was in love with was far, far away, and she couldn't be with her. So she had been celibate for, 10 years or something. Wow. It was an intense amount of time. But she was very easy to talk to, a little quirky, but she was easy to talk to. And it was just really great to be able to be comfortable in a space where talking about crushes and girls and stuff was totally normal, right? Yeah. And that was really my first real connection to the lesbian community. So yeah, it was interesting. It was an interesting journey.
You don't hear that often, your first lesbian connection being in Africa. That's amazing though. I mean, I can't imagine like how terrifying that must have been all at the same time. But then to find, underground or not, like-minded individuals that would be willing to accept you. I'm sure that was just,
it was a relief, and it was really powerful because like I went to my first drag show, and like to see this complete acceptance and just a joyful expression of everything that they were, it was so inspiring, and it felt so new, and it was really amazing. I want to touch on something else. So after I left and I was on my own, I wasn't on my own, I was with this person that I left with. Her name is Leah, and Leah, as it turned out, was very abusive, and I didn't know that. And I was surprised by that because I assumed that women would be kinder, gentler, better communicators. And it got bad enough that she tried to kill me. And I had to go running and hide in another place with another friend of a friend. And I was in some pretty seedy, dangerous places, sometimes with my child. And I think that a lot of for younger lesbians coming into the community, I really just like to say, like, we're human, we're female, but we're human. And there are bad humans in all genders. You have to still be discerning. You can't just trust that everybody is on the same kind and loving path that you are, for sure.
Yeah, and that's a wonderful message because we are all human beings. And I think I was actually shocked the first time. I had a friend that I knew out in Tennessee, and I found out that her wife, actually not wife, I think it was just her girlfriend, would physically abuse her. And I remember thinking, what? That happens?
Yeah.
And I was young at the time. I think I was like 21. 20. I'm living it up in Nashville for a couple of years as like really out lesbian.
Woohoo! Like rainbows everywhere. Yeah.
Yes. It was a good time, probably too many fun times, but that story has always stuck with me because I remember going, what, like this happens? Like, really? And it does, because we are all human beings, and we are all very different. We operate differently,
and we have trauma, and
and
and imagine being in that situation where you cannot go to the police because you would be danger with the police.
Yep. And funny you mentioned that because my friend in that scenario was on the butchier side, and the cops actually went to arrest her instead.
Because they assumed?
Yeah.
Because she was the masculine energy?
Yes. So, which isn't the first time I've actually heard that over the years of that happening, which is just awful. We all tick differently. We're all just different human beings. We all have our own trauma experiences that shape our emotions and feelings.
I have just been published in a queer anthology, and the piece that I
love that.
I wrote,
I'm in 3 anthologies, so I love that.
That's exciting.
Yes.
I'd love to read what you wrote.
Yes, likewise.
I actually, what we're talking about as far as like religious trauma is what I wrote about. I wonder if I could just grab it and read it. Can I
go for it. Please do.
Is that okay?
Please do.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
It's called I Didn't Find God. I was a born again Christian at the age of 12, but I didn't find God. I followed all the rules to gain his favor, and yet I didn't find God. I started a prayer group and the Bible club at my high school, even fighting the school board in order to do so. But I didn't find God. I picketed with my church at anti-gay events and health clinics that offered abortion, and I didn't find God. I passed out pamphlets and I left them in bathroom stalls, imploring people to repent and follow God, but I didn't find God. I took a purity pledge and was a virgin until I was married, believing that this would make me worthy, but I didn't find God. I took my subservient position under every single male, worthy or not, allowed myself to shrink, to obey against everything I knew to be true inside, but I didn't find God. As a missionary in Africa, working almost without pay in often dangerous situations, I thought I knew enough about God to introduce others to him, but I didn't find God. When I was tricked into participating in my own exorcism, I didn't find God. When I was separated against my will from my nursing infant and sent away on a retreat with the express order to seek God and ask him to heal me from my same-sex attraction, I didn't find God. When, at this silent retreat, the only person I was permitted to speak with was the overseeing clergy. In a difficult moment, I knocked on his office door, and after hearing my story, he closed that same door, but with me on the inside. He told me that he too was gay, and that there was nothing about me that needed to be cured. He reassured me that I was still fearfully and wonderfully made. And I saw the possibility of God's love at a distance, but I didn't find God. When my family turned their backs on me because they refused to repent and go back in the closet, and actively tried to have my daughter removed from me because no matter how good a mother you are, we believe children should not be raised in a 2-woman family, I didn't find God. When, in spite of the forcible retreat, I came out of the closet fully, and the ministry I was with stranded me in Africa with my 14-month-old baby, refusing to fly me home or to renew my work visa, I stopped looking for God. When I held the hand of a friend through her unwanted abortion procedure and wiped her tears away, God spoke to me in that clinic room, and she said, I am found in the unlikeliest of places. When I was adopted at the age of 24, loved unconditionally, and accepted for who I was no matter what, I imagined that this must be what God's love, what her family was like. God whispered, I am found in the unlikeliest of families. When I went to my first drag show and felt true joy, freedom, and acceptance without control or coercion, she said, I am found in authenticity. When I saw the sun rise in Harare and set in Tucson, listened to the sound of gunshots and children's laughter outside my bedroom window, smelled night-blooming jasmine and diesel fumes, I heard her say, I am found in the contrast, the in-between spaces, the gray. When I went to my first Pride parade and saw the beauty, courage, and triumph and reveled in the utter elation of the day, she smiled and said, I am found with the outcasts. I still haven't found God. In a sense, she is still elusive to me. She is undefined, unlabeled, and unnamed. Whether that's for my own sense of safety or the truth of her, I cannot say. But I see her in rainbow puddles and the green of my cat's eyes. I feel her in true love's kiss and the smell of dew in the morning. I still haven't found her, because I know now that she was never meant as something to be found, as if hidden away, exclusive like a treasure. She was always meant to be bumped into, tripped over, rediscovered over and again. She was always meant to be seen anew, as if for the first time, by my perpetually born yet again self, through eyes no longer blinded by buried versions of me embalmed in patriarchy and wrapped in oppression.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, that
Thanks
just
for
really
listening.
shows the depth of your journey.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that. I feel like it's a snapshot, but I know that there's people out there that can absolutely relate. And just your strength along the way. I mean, to have found yourself and what, you know, God means to you, and not being told what God should mean to you. Because those are two very different things.
So true. Yes.
So yes, that is excellent. And I have to go back to the exorcism part.
Oh yes. That is a very, very interesting story.
So,
yes.
I heard that and I was like, yeah, yes. I have to ask about that. Inquiring minds would like to know about this exorcism that took place.
It was fascinating. So we were in Africa at the time, and I was still married, and I had told my husband that I was really struggling with my feelings of same-sex attraction. And he went to the leadership, who decided to gather the entire campus into a room, bring in a specialist who casts out demons on a regular basis. Apparently that's a thing that people can specialize in. And without telling me, then bring me into the room. And I walked in and everybody was like quiet. It was this like little chapel kind of room. And I walked in and I remember like, am I late to something? Like, did I not know? Like, a party for me. No, they had one chair. They sat me in the chair, and all of a sudden there was like people around me, like speaking in tongues and laying hands on me and flailing about and trying to basically cast out the demon of homosexuality. And also, what did they call it? Insubordination. The demon of insubordination, because I was being insubordinate to my husband. So yeah, there's a lot of that in my life right now. I don't believe in subordination. It doesn't work for me.
Right.
Except in my practice. In my practice, there's a lot of that, but yeah. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Did they actually believe that what they were doing had either worked in the past or would work? Or that's so wild to me.
I think they didn't know what to do. because I was pretty influential in the company at the time. I was an up and coming, and I think that they just were like, oh, this can't happen. Like, this is going to shake everything. So we have to get her back in line quickly so that we can continue to move forward in the way that we want to. It was embarrassing. It caused a lot of shame for me, a lot of fear. Like, oh my God, do I have a demon? What do I do if I have a demon? Like, I mean, you don't know, right? And even years later, like if somebody said like any kind of like a cursey thing, like the devil's going to get you kind of curses, it would freak me out. Like I just couldn't. It was very, very, very traumatic for me. Looking back after doing the healing work, it's kind of comical because I was not demon possessed and they were behaving in very erratic ways. And if I pull myself out and look at it, I'm just like, okay, that's hilarious.
That's ridiculous. Yeah.
Right. It's like hilarious. Yeah. But it was not hilarious at the time.
I can't imagine it was. Especially like you said, the embarrassment, like obviously a room full of people. I mean, it went from you telling your husband to your community that you had there at the time. So I can imagine that was absolutely terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember at the end of it, they said, do you feel better? And I was just like,
what do you,
I wasn't feeling bad going in, but maybe I have a really nice demon. I don't know. I don't understand. I didn't understand what I was supposed to feel. It was very awkward. That would be a socially awkward moment, is being tricked into your own exorcism. I'm just saying, it's not really like top of my list of experiences.
Oh my gosh. That is not a surprise party I would ever like to be a part of. That is
Where's
not.
the balloons?
I know. Where's the cake? At least serve cake at the end if you're going to do an exorcism on somebody.
Right.
Oh
gosh. It was just a whole thing. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I don't even know what to say after that story. I'm just like, I'm trying to picture my face. Like if somebody were to try that on me, I don't know how I could even keep a straight face. I'm not going to lie. Like, I don't know what my face would say, but oh my gosh.
But if you were young, if you were 20.
Yep.
And only had been in that environment where there was good and evil and they were in a battle for your soul. And you were doing something that the Bible explicitly says, according to their translation, that was like absolutely horrible, and you were definitely going to hell. It's hard to have the inner strength to not believe it. To be where we are now, which is like, okay, that's weird, right? Yeah. Like you can't, you're just too young, and you're not fully like developed yet. And so, I think that religion it can be good. It can also be a crutch, and it can be a weapon. So it really depends on how it's being utilized. And in that sense, definitely a weapon. So,
Yes, I am not religious. I did not grow up in a religious environment at all. And I have my own feelings about religion, as many people do.
Sure.
But I have a hard time with people who are incredibly religious. I've had a very important person in my life say that he wouldn't come to my wedding because I knew he was a Christian. And it's just like, to set aside someone that you supposedly love and care about, like a family member, and say something like, I don't understand how people are okay with that within themselves as a human being,
it's horrible. I can give you actually a reason why.
I'd love to hear it.
Because I was in that other side of it for a while. It's because they really do believe that they're doing you a service. They believe that by denying connection with you, by bringing to your attention repeatedly that what you're doing is so very wrong, somehow they're going to get you to reflect and then maybe move in their direction so that they can save you from eternity in the hell waters of whatever, hellfire, whatever, the lake of fire, right? So they think they're doing you a good thing. I know. They think that they're doing a good thing when actually they're not. They're pushing you away, and they're causing a disconnect, which in my belief, like I now my belief is very non-specific. And, I think it's more like, I think that which is greater than us, that connects all of us, is actually learning through us. So we are like little pieces of deity running around on the earth, having all these experiences, pleasure, joy, disappointment, anger. And as we're experiencing all of those things, it's uploading. to the greater consciousness. And as we experience these things, God, it, them, her, whatever, it's actually evolving. I don't think that the thing that we are talking about here, I don't think that it is stagnant, and I don't think that it is perfect. I think it is as imperfect as we are, and that together we are collectively changing our humanity, our experiences. Perhaps if we're re-embodied into a different person next time around, we maybe have a different set of things to learn. I don't think that the Christian view is so, fundamentalist Christian view, I should say, so narrow. God is perfect. God must be worshipped. Very, whatever God wants, I'll do because I am their servant. I'm here to serve them and do as I'm told. But that's not taking responsibility for our own life and our own actions. And that lead to a whole bunch of other things. And it's funny to me how very many DS images there are in the Bible. I want to throw myself at your feet and worship you and punish me, oh God, for I have sinned. And all of these very BDSM-y images. Yeah. And a lot of it is centered around paying for our sins. And that's part of the reason that I've transitioned into this work, because the work that I do in Pain with Purpose is people come to me with trauma, with shame, with a desire to reconnect with their body, to process difficult emotions, to experience something new, perhaps a little scary. And then I walk them through that journey with compassion and skill, and they experience a release. Their body goes through a transformation, because when you're in the hands of somebody and at their mercy, and you can trust them and you let go, all kinds of stuff comes up. And the work that I have done and the ways that I have seen it transform people's lives is tangible, and it's phenomenal. And it is, to me, a better experience than the Christian, born again situation where you just go, come into my heart, Jesus, and forgive me. And then all of a sudden, everything you've ever done is now erased, and you are now free. And
so wild.
It's what is that? It's just weird. It's like a secret code. I don't get it. The work that I do is very pragmatic. Usually takes a few sessions, even sometimes months. And I think for me, it's the shame aspect. The shame about being who they are. Maybe they like to wear women's clothing and nobody knows that. But in the space with a professional who is trained in trauma work, they can do that, experience the freedom of it, and then grieve what they have lost outside of this space.
Yeah. For
me, BDSM is actually a great opportunity for transformation, and it is a spiritual practice in and of itself. So, yeah.
Wow. What got you into the work? We know the journey, of life, but what was it that led you into the work that you're doing?
I like pain.
Okay.
That's what led me into it, because I guess I'm a glutton for punishment after all of the years of trauma and whatever. That's not actually true, but that's not where it comes from.
Yeah.
Science doesn't say that. But for me, I knew what happened when I felt in service to somebody. So I actually entered the community as a submissive, and my experience was not a positive one. The person that I was with for 12 weeks, it was my first experience, that was new for them as well. And it was awful in all the ways it can be awful. And I didn't understand it. And so I started to read and I started to learn. And then I started to understand that I understood the dynamic kind of naturally. And then somebody approached me and asked me to be their dominant, really literally out of the blue. I was I owned a picture framing company, and I was there and in my business. And this person just walks in and was like, I think you have this thing I'm looking for. And so I sort of stepped into the community that way. I've done a lot more study and reading. I'm actually starting training this weekend to be a certified therapeutic BDSM practitioner. I'm really excited about that. But I have been doing that work for I've been a professional dominant for almost 9 years, 9 or 10 now. But the last 3 years of it has been primarily focused on healing work and also rites of passage, because our society, we don't offer an opportunity for people to have that rite of passage. So people seek it. They jump out of airplanes, they bungee jump, they all these things to kind of get them to be I did the thing. So now I'm I'm a qualified person. I have attained the hard thing. Yeah. So I offer people that same sort of experience, but with pain and impact play. And so it gives them an opportunity to try something that they've never done. They help, we work on it together. We design an experience, and then I provide the experience with them. Full consent, obviously. And so, yeah. And so, it's, for me, I think the transition between the shame part and the fear part, when they transition through the experience and at the end of it, there's this euphoric release of all of those happy hormones, and, their minds are sort of purged of all of the noise. That after phase, that peaceful connection point at the end, it is better than any church worship service I've ever attended. It is the most beautiful, most raw, realist place. I have had 6'4", 355-pound men sobbing like a baby, wrapped in a blanket, holding a cup of water at the end of this, because they just needed to purge that feeling, those feelings of shame and never being quite good enough. They come through it and they're changed people. And I'm really honored to be a part of it.
So for people that just heard all of that about BDSM, what does the first couple of sessions look like, so that people aren't still terrified to give it a go? But what do those first couple of sessions look like, to ease them into a process that they're just not sure about?
Sure. Okay, so everybody will be different because every practice is different, but these are what mine would look like. So the first session would be a whole lot of paperwork, all the fun stuff, all the consents, very specific questions are asked. I need to know your health history. I need to know your psychological needs. Are you on any kind of SSRIs? Because different things can affect the body differently. And then we usually do a test where I use all of my implements and you give me a 1 to 10, so that I understand how your body experiences the sensation and what level you're taking in that strike, so that I can understand how hard is the right kind of hard. And everybody is so different that some people prefer stingy, some people prefer thuddy, some people prefer no pain, but just sensation. There's roping and sensation play are my specialties, but I also do needling, and I do pet play. So there's lots of different things that people can do. So the second session would then be whatever it is that they came to me for. So for example, if they were interested in a submissive experience with maybe some impact play, we would usually start dressing down to the amount of clothing that they have deemed comfortable for themselves. Usually I greet them at the door. There's a protocol that they have to perform at the door. It's like a greeting ritual. And then we go into the practice space, which is not a dungeon. I don't have a dark black and red or black and purple space, because I'm doing shadow work, but I'm doing it in the light, and that's really where I want it to be. So my space is bright and airy, excuse me, and comfortable. And then I would just sort of take control of their experience. And I'm really good at reading bodies and being able to bring them up to a crescendo, to the top point where they just feel like they can't take any more of that sensation, and then dropping them down enough so that their body sort of lets a cascade of really happy hormones to help manage that pain. And once we do that rise and fall a couple of times, their body will start to shake. And then I watch for other signs. And it's at a certain point, it'll be the conclusion. Or if they've asked me to stop, that's also always a great place to stop. So either one of those things. And then what happens is the ending can bring another cascade of those. It's like a morphine that our body makes. So they usually feel high, and that high can last for 2 to 3 days. And in that space, a lot of things tend to come up for the individuals, and then we can talk through those things. Another way that I work is with particularly women who have had some kind of sexual trauma, sometimes physical trauma as well, because women, well, anybody, but I'm speaking about women, we store it in the cells of our body. And so when we are able to say no and have that no respected, sometimes I've had to do that repeatedly, where they agreed to something. We have it on paper, we have a contract, but then the session begins and their job is to say no as many times as it takes to feel respected. Because every time they say no, it will stop. And that helps them to feel empowered because maybe their no was not heard before. And that can be very cathartic for women.
Yeah.
Another way is to switch the responsibility for the scene. So they're asking for pain, which is another way that can encourage almost like just a processing of the pain. It's a difficult thing to put into words, but I've seen it so repeatedly that I really find it has been really helpful for a lot of the people who come to me for work.
Yeah. Wow. I feel like we chatted about everything today. Religious trauma into BDSM,
I know.
Which I am so grateful for you. I'm so grateful that you explained that because I've not in the BDSM world. I've never experienced it. I've never given it a go either. So it's fascinating to see it or hear about it from a therapeutic standpoint, because I feel as though most people haven't heard it from that perspective. So thank you so much for sharing that. If you wouldn't mind sharing how people can reach out to you, your website, your socials, and I believe you have 2 books, correct?
I only have 1 book. Well, I have the anthology, but it's not really under my name. So the book that I have isn't really related to the work I'm doing now, but it is a rite of passage book. It's called She Births, a modern woman's guidebook to an ancient rite of passage. And it's about women kind of taking childbirth as a way of a rite of passage many moons ago. I don't believe all of the things I wrote in that book, but so you can actually find me by looking for Pain with Purpose, which is Payne. My BDSM name is Mistress Mia Payne, Payne. If you put that all together and do it at gmail.com, you can email me. And I think that's probably the best ways for people to contact me from this conversation. You'll see Bounce Don't Break coaching, which is more of a life coaching, less of a BDSM, more vanilla approach to things. You can find that on Pain with Purpose. It's a self-development dungeon. And that's sort of where I'm moving in that direction. So everything's under one umbrella now. So yeah. Okay. I'd love to talk to anybody.
Awesome. And one last thing that I like to end with my guests, if there is one little nugget of advice that you could share with the LGBTQ community and leave them with, what would it be?
That's a good question. I think that radical self-acceptance is the foundation to all healing, and learning to embrace everything that we are, good and bad, allows us to be gracious with other people. And that's where love starts.
Thank you. I think that is a perfect representation and ending to this entire episode. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your journey and what you're doing now. Please leave comments for Marcie or myself about this episode. You can also follow Queer and Here on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Queer and Here Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. You are loved. You are enough. Please lean on each other and ask for help when needed. See you next time.